Hey everybody, welcome to Mammoth Interactive's YouTube channel. First of all, I want to thank you for watching this video. And remember that this channel doesn't do Patreon. Instead, we sell our digital courses down below. And every single dollar that we get from the products you buy below goes into making more content. The best way to help out this channel and Mammoth Interactive is to subscribe to Mammoth Interactive's huge library of content. Get thousands of hours and hundreds of courses for a low price down below. We have a monthly option and a yearly option. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the video.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our course. In this course, we're going to learn how to build a simple virtual reality game in Unreal 5. We're going to learn how we can build out a new virtual reality project, as well as add objects that are grabbable and interactable in virtual reality. You won't need any headset or controllers to follow along. We're just going to use the simulator here in simulate mode. But if you do have a headset or controllers, you can test out this game with your headset and controllers, and that is recommended. But for a fast way to test, or if you don't have a headset or controllers, we're going to be using the simulate mode. We're going to learn how to add in our own objects, our own meshes, such as these pins and these bowling balls. All of these will be provided for you for free, made by Mammoth Interactive. And as well, we're going to learn how we can build out some simple blueprints in order to handle collisions. So every time a pin falls down, that will increase the player's score. And that is going to be the project. Quite a fun project and a great way for beginners to get started in virtual reality. And we're using the Unreal 5 engine. I'm excited to get started, so join me in our next lecture. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Unreal Virtual Reality course. In this lecture, we're going to talk about what you will need to take this course. First, you will need an Epic Games account, which is completely free to create. And you need this in order to install the Epic Games Launcher application onto your computer. The launcher is also free. You need this launcher application in order to install versions of Unreal, which is also free. We're going to be using Unreal Engine 5.0 Early Access, and this is also the version that we recommend you follow along with, but you can use any version of Unreal 5. The Epic Games Launcher allows you to install different versions of Unreal, and also it allows you to open your projects and to download assets from the Unreal Marketplace and more. As well, you're going to need a Windows computer to follow along with this course. Unreal runs really slowly on Macs. Even if you have an M1 Mac and you're running a Windows virtual machine, Unreal will still run slowly. That's why we recommend a Windows computer. As well, you won't need any virtual reality headset or virtual reality controllers. They're not required, but they are recommended. In this course, we're going to be testing out our project using the Unreal simulator in order to simulate a virtual reality scene. But if you want to test out your virtual reality project, application, or game as it would actually be for the end user, then you will need a virtual reality headset and controllers. But it's only for if you want to test how it actually would look for the end user. If you're just learning or you're just prototyping a virtual reality project or game and you don't necessarily want to deploy it yet, or you want to just quickly test it out, then you don't need a headset or controllers. There are many different headsets and controllers out there, so that's why we're just using the simulator, so anyone can follow along, regardless of if they have a headset or if they have a different headset. As well, Unreal Experience is recommended for this course because we're not going to be breaking down the basics of Unreal. We're going to be building out a new project and then adding objects to our game and then adding game functionality. And you can follow along without Unreal Experience if you have experience with other game engines or other software, but it will be harder to follow along if you have no Unreal experience. So it's highly recommended to watch our Unreal Introduction course on Unreal 5. All source files will be provided with this course. You can find them at the end of each section. You just have to extract these zip files and then open the projects with the Epic Games Launcher application. You don't want to open it directly via the folder because then it might not build properly. You want to open it via this launcher application so that way they can build properly. As well, we're going to be using blueprints to write game functionality. Blueprints are a visual scripting language. They're an alternative to the C++ programming language. In Unreal, you can either write your game functionality with blueprints or with C++. And if you're working long-term in Unreal, it's important to know both blueprints and C++. But for beginners, blueprints are a lot easier to start off with because they're a lot easier to write and also to debug, whereas C++ is an advanced programming language. But with blueprints, you will still be learning programming in a way because blueprints build upon all the same concepts of programming. Blueprints still use classes, variables, functions, loops, and all of those programming topics. All right, so join me in our next section. We're going to do an introduction to Unreal, how to install it, and then we'll jump straight into building out our project. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our course. In this lecture, we're going to do an introduction to what is Unreal Engine 5 in the first place. We'll talk about, in general, what is Unreal, and then specifically some features of Unreal 5. Unreal is a software for building virtual worlds, visualizations, and entertainment. It's used across many industries like game development, but also in the automotive industry for designing cars. It's used as well in film for visual effects, and as well it's used in architecture for designing buildings and much more. It can also be used for augmented reality, virtual reality, and machine learning, because with Unreal you can really quickly create worlds that are realistic. They don't have to be hyper realistic, but they can be, and therefore you can really quickly generate data sets, whether that's for being able to take a picture of an image from 1,000 different angles, so that later you can use those data sets for detection, or whether that's designing tracks for self-driving cars to train in a realistic like road. There are lots of possibilities of what you can build with Unreal. It is an open and advanced real-time 3D creation tool. It's also completely free, so anyone can just download Unreal and start building something with it. There's a large active community of developers and designers and in general creators. So there's a lot of support online if you have questions, if you have problems. Oftentimes, most likely someone has come across the same problem that you have or is building something that you could find interesting. Unreal was created by the company Epic Games, who also built the games Fortnite and Infinity Blade. So there's quite a lot of production and team behind building the Unreal Engine itself, and it's still constantly being developed and improved. Unreal supports pipeline integration, animation, simulation, and effects, integrating media, building worlds, gameplay, as well Hollywood quality rendering, lighting, and materials, virtual production, and developer tools. There is a whole suite of tools for you to use, and you can learn more at unrealengine.com. We're going to be using Unreal Engine 5 Early Access. Unreal Engine 5 is the latest version of Unreal. It has many new key features and improvements, such as a new design of the editor that's more user-friendly, and also very interesting Nanite and Lumen technologies. Nanite is a virtualized micropolygon system that allows you to build your meshes, your objects with huge amounts of geometric detail. So you can have millions of polygons in super high quality source assets while still having a real-time frame rate. And Unreal is used to build projects all the way from huge commercial games to indie games to huge films, blockbuster films, and other industries as well. Nanite, as of Unreal 5 is available for use, and it allows you to have super high quality polygons inside of your objects. And the great thing about Nanite is that if you're zoomed out, you might not necessarily want to have a high level of detail, and Nanite can actually intelligently process how much detail you need. So if you're zoomed out, you won't have to process all of those micro details, but if you're really zoomed in, you will process those details. As well as of Unreal 5, there is now the Lumen technology, which allows for dynamic illumination. So you no longer have to author your light map UVs and bake your light maps. Lighting is a lot more dynamic and adaptive on the fly. And this is huge because before, lighting was a lot of work to set up in any kind of environment. But with Lumen, lighting is dynamic. There are many other features to Unreal 5 as well. Nanite and Lumen are the two big highlights. To learn more, just go to epicgames.com and read more about their Unreal Engine 5 features. Unreal 5 is quite exciting. It's great for anyone from a beginner to game development to someone who's advanced in game development to start off building out a project. So it's great regardless of where you are in your game development journey. You can build something with Unreal. Whether you want to build a low poly indie game or you want to build a more high quality realistic game, you can do it quickly with Unreal. And not only games, but of course other industries as well. For this course, we're focused on game development. And as well, with Unreal, you can also use its templates for building games, which is a great way to learn and also to build projects quickly. We're going to be learning throughout our series of courses on Unreal. We're going to learn how to build projects from scratch and also how to put to use templates, because with templates, you can build out your projects really quickly. And without templates, you can really learn from the ground up how to use Unreal. Unreal is used at many companies across lots of industries like the automotive industry, the film industry, of course, the game development industry. So it's a great tool to add to your tool belt, being able to use this powerful software. So join me coming up in our next lecture. We will talk about how to install Unreal. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our course. In this lecture, we're going to learn how to install the Unreal 5 engine. First, you want to go to unrealengine.com/English-US/download. Okay, so this is the downloads page for the Unreal Engine. Here you have two different licensing options. You have a publishing license and a creator's license. Okay, for the publishing license, after the first $1 million in revenue that your product makes, then you have to pay a 5% royalty. For the creator's license, there are no royalties. However, for the creator's license, you then wouldn't get for game development. For publishing a game, choose the publishing license. But for just learning or for internal and free projects, custom applications, or linear content, such as film or TV, you can choose the creator's license, which doesn't have any royalties. Okay, then you just click this button, download now, and this is going to prompt you to sign up or log in to an Epic Games account. Right, so you can sign up for an Epic Games account. It's completely free. And that will allow you to download that Epic Games Launcher. So this application is going to be called the Epic Games Launcher, and once you have it installed, open it up. Here it is on my computer. I have the Epic Games application now open. All right, and next up, in order to get Unreal Engine 5, we have to go into this tab UE5, and we have to download the early access version of this engine. Okay, so then in the top right hand corner, you'll have this button that says you can launch the engine. But you'll only get this button in the top right hand corner if you have downloaded the Unreal Engine 5. It takes about an hour or more to download depending on your computer's speed. There's also a prompt for UE4, Unreal Engine 4. And if you are finding yourself clicking this button, UE5, download early access, and if you find that nothing happens when you click that, In that case, go to UE4 and start a download of UE4, Unreal Engine 4, and then just pause the download and start a download of UE5 again. Because I encountered this problem when I tried to here click download early access, but nothing was happening. And that was because I didn't have any version of Unreal Engine in my library at all. But if you have a version of Unreal Engine 4, even if it's not even downloaded, if it's just partially downloaded, then come back and you can download early access. Because Unreal Engine 5 is an early access version as of now, it means that there can be some bugs and issues like that. All right, once you have installed Unreal Engine 5, you can press the button in the top right-hand corner or inside of your library to launch the engine. All right, and this is going to allow you to then select what kind of project you want to create. The first time that you launch a project via Unreal Engine, it can take some time for the engine to set itself up. For example, for compiling its shaders when you're making a new project. So just be patient when you're running UE5 for the first time. But then once you have started building projects with it, it will launch faster each time. Okay, here we can see we have different tabs for our recent projects, games templates, film, video, and live events templates, architecture, engineering, and construction templates, and automotive product design and manufacturing templates, the four main industries that Unreal is used for. And that is how you can install Unreal Engine 5. If you have any other issues installing Unreal 5, just search them up via a search engine or look into the Unreal Engine 5 forums and look up your issue there. Speaking of which, coming up next, we're going to talk about how to debug Unreal, what to do if you encounter any problems or you have a question or an error that pops up. So join me in our next lecture. Hello everyone and welcome back to our course. Before we get started building our Unreal project, we're going to talk in this lecture quickly about how to debug Unreal, what to do if you have a question or a problem or an error. Because Unreal has been around for a while and it has a large active community, there are lots of people out there who have asked questions or who answer questions on the web. Because more often than not, usually, if you have a question, it has likely been asked before on the web. All right, so first, any questions that you have, sometimes they may just come up if something isn't working, or other times you might get an error message in the log. So to see all of your error messages, just go to the Window tab in the header of any Unreal project, and then there go into the log section and you can open up the device output log, the message log, or the output log, and you can see exactly what happened at every step of the project's launching or even creation, and you can see what might have caused an issue. Then once you know your problem, you know your error message, or you know what your problem is, you can search it up via a search engine. There are many answers on Stack Overflow or Unreal forums. As well, you can join a Discord server for Unreal 5. And on top of that, Unreal 5 has an early access forum specifically for questions about UE5 early access, which you can go to by visiting forums.unrealengine.com and then using the Unreal Engine 5 early access tag. You can see if anyone is encountering the same problem as you are with your exact version of Unreal, whatever version that may be that you're using. For example, Unreal Engine 5 early access. All right, so that is how you can debug and solve problems in Unreal. Every problem is solvable with enough time. With enough searching, you will find an answer to your question, so don't give up. Now that we have introduced Unreal, join me coming up in our next section where we're going to start building out our project. Hello everyone and welcome back to our course. In this lecture, we are going to build our new virtual reality Unreal 5 project. So pop open Unreal, launch the Unreal 5 engine, and we're going to select our template. You could create your game completely from scratch and then add in all of the virtual reality components yourself. That is one option. Another option is to use the virtual reality template. Okay, so this has a lot of already pre-built functionality for virtual reality for you. And you can even plug in your headset and immediately start using this template. So that's what we're going to do in this course. We're going to use the virtual reality template. So select that template, and we don't need any starter content here, but if you wanted to, you could include starter content with basic meshes, materials, and textures. You can also add them later in the content browser. Then give your project a name. We'll call this virtual reality and hit create. And the Unreal editor will pop open. We don't need any new plugins, and we do want to update our project for Unreal 5. Feel free to move around these different windows. Okay, so you can drag open the windows if you need more viewing size. All right, here we have by default our world outliner open, content browser, and details, but you can open up more windows with the window tab, and you can find all of those windows and more. Let's take a look at this default template. All right, so here we have the scene. You can scroll forward and back to view our virtual reality scene. We have this container, and inside of it we have a spectator camera for viewing the game in spectator mode. We also have some primitives, such as here we have an object, this sphere, and we can look at it in the world outliner to see this is our SM ball. We also have some grabbable objects here, a grabbable cube. We have grabbable weapons as well, and other cubes in the scene. We can already test this out. If you have a headset, then you can plug in your headset for virtual reality and your controllers and start using this template. If you don't have a headset, then you can just go to the play button and you can select either selected viewport or simulate to view the game. All right, here we go. And if I press tab, I can switch to spectator mode. Okay, so to go to spectator mode, I'm just going to go ahead and change my play type to selected viewport. Okay, there we go. Then I'm going to hit tab. All right, so here we go. Now I'm in that camera view, and here I'm in that camera. I can move forward and back, left and right with WASD. I can also move up and down with Q and E keys on the keyboard. So this allows you to view your game as though you were in the scene, and you can move around. If you want to actually be able to interact with objects via the camera, then you have to plug in your headset. Hit escape to cancel the preview. Okay, we can also just go into simulate mode. All right, so here this time I'm not in that camera anymore. This time I'm just moving around the game, and this allows you to test out your different objects. So for example, if I click on one of the objects and move them around, it's as though I'm grabbing them. If you had your controllers plugged in, then you could use your virtual reality controllers to grab this object and then drop it. But if you don't have controllers or a headset, or you just want to test really quickly, you don't want to plug all that stuff in, then you can just go into simulate mode. So you have to go click on the three dots beside play. I'm just zoomed in here. That's why my play is on the right-hand side. Your play will be more in the center. So here you select simulate in order to enter this mode where you can move objects around. All right, and that is going to be the template here. We can also take a look at more of the objects that we have in the content browser. First, we have FP weapon with some of the weapon meshes. We also have geometries, the cubes, the spheres, and the floor. We have a VR spectator folder. This is for that spectator camera. Then we have the VR template, which has different components like blueprints for grabbing objects, for being in the virtual reality game mode, for teleporting. So if you plug in your controllers, then you can put all these to use. You can teleport around with your controllers, you can move around, you can grab objects, all with your virtual reality controllers. If you don't have those, then you can just, again, enter the spectate or spectator mode. So with this virtual reality template, all of this stuff was set up for us. We can just plug in our headset and controls and start using this template. That's a lot faster than creating it completely from scratch, but you can create it completely from scratch as well and just put all of these in yourself. That would be a lot more work, but it would help you understand more about how virtual reality works from the ground up. For our purposes, we're going to start with this template because it does a lot of the initial work for us, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All right, next up, let's go ahead and start adding in our own art assets. So we'll start adding some of our own custom meshes into the game, and I'll show you how we can make them into blueprints, how we can add colliders to them, and how we can also make them work in virtual reality. So join me in our next lecture where we'll continue our project. Hello everyone and welcome back to our course. In the previous lecture, we built out our project using a virtual reality template here in Unreal. And I'm just clicking, holding, and scrolling my mouse around in order to walk around this scene when I'm not in play mode. Next up, we're going to add our own art assets for our game. We're building a bowling game, so we need bowling pins and a bowling ball, as well as the actual room or the floor that we could add in as well. So I provided for you at the end of the last section the art assets folder, which you can find in the source files. I'll also put it at the end of this section so that you make sure you can find it. So that's inside of the source files folder at the end of the section. And this is the folder of our FBX files that we're going to use for putting in our bowling ball and bowling pins. These are some art assets that were made by Mammoth Interactive, and they're free for you to use. So if you want to put in your own folder here into this content browser, select new folder here, and we are going to call this our FBX_files folder. All right, currently this folder is empty, but I'm just going to drag in from my source files that FBX bowling files folder. So I'm going to put in all of these contents. For that, I'm going to press add in Unreal, and here I'm going to import into the game. And I'm going to go into my source files here, select the FBX bowling files. You have to double click and then select all the contents inside of there and then press open. Then just hit enter to accept the parameters that were just given in that window and wait for all of the contents to import into our folder. Any warnings in the message log here, you can just accept and ignore. That's fine. We can close that message log and then we can make Unreal full screen again. Okay, so now in our FBX files folder, we have all of those files. So we have files for a bowling alley, as well as files for a bowling pin and for a bowling ball. There are meshes here and also materials to give color to the meshes. Before you can add these objects to your scene and play them, you have to make sure that everything has been built in this bottom right-hand corner. All of the shaders have to be compiled. So just be patient and let all of that compile. It's pretty typical for compiling shaders to take a while in any Unreal project. Okay, so here are the assets we're going to use. Once this is all compiled, we can start adding some of our first assets. Our first asset to add is going to be the bowling ball. And instead of just dragging it from our FBX files into the scene, we're actually going to make it a custom grabbable object. So that way in virtual reality, it can be grabbed with a virtual reality controller. So I'll show you how to do that in the next lecture. Then we'll add our other objects and we'll process collisions and be able to calculate a player's score. We can also add our environment, so we can remove this default environment and change it to be our own room or our own landscape, whatever kind of background we want. You can have a different background or scene for each level of the bowling game. So join me in our next lecture where we will continue this project. Hello everyone and welcome back to our course. In the previous lecture, we learned how to add in our custom assets into the game. In this lecture, we're going to start using one of those assets, and that is going to be the bowling ball. So we can search here, and we see that we have a material, and a static mesh that have the word ball in them. We're interested in the bowling ball icosphere static mesh. If you drag it into your game, it looks like this. Okay, so here we have a bowling ball, but if we just drag it here into the game, the problem is that it won't be grabbable by virtual reality controllers. So let's delete that with the delete key. And instead, I want to add a grabbable object. So for this, we can go into the VR template, the virtual reality template. And here we have several blueprints, all right, and meshes, as well as materials for those meshes. We're interested in the blueprints, and we want to use a grabbable object. In this case, that is the grabbable small cube. These are the cubes in the scene. These can be grabbed by a virtual reality controller. That's why they have grabbable in the name, because they were made by the VR template. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this. So I'm going to duplicate this class, and I'm going to make our own grabbable class for the bowling ball. The reason I'm duplicating this is because I don't want to have to write that all myself from scratch. So I'm just going to copy and paste here with Control C and then Control V, and that is going to just create this duplicate. You can also rename this. Let's just right click and rename. I'm going to call this grabbable underscore ball. Then I'll hit enter. Okay, and now we have grabbable ball. We can double click on that to open it. By default, the event graph will open, which contains some functionality. We have a construction script, viewport. Then we also have the component. So this is called the grabbable ball. It has a static mesh, which is what actually shows this box visual. Then we have a grab component on that static mesh. That's what makes this grabbable in virtual reality. So we want to keep this grab component, but I just want to remove the mesh. So I can click the mesh and delete it. The grab component will still be here. And instead, I want to add a bowling ball. Okay, so I'm going to put in here, if you search for ball, you can't add it directly like this because that is for adding components. But what we can do is we can drag in from the content browser our bowling ball. So let me just take this grabbable ball and put it next to my viewport. Then this content browser I can just put onto the side here. Okay, great. Then I'm going to take the grabbable ball. I'm currently in here, and I want to enter my FBX files. Okay, and I want to search for my ball mesh. It's the icosphere. I'm going to drag that mesh into my blueprint. Okay, so now I'm going to just move my content browser and reopen the grabbable ball. And inside of components, we now have this bowling ball icosphere. So we can hit enter, and it's a static mesh component. Okay, and now if we click on this icosphere, we can see it. Just scroll out a little bit, and here is this bowling ball. We can hit compile on the blueprint in order for the blueprint to be built. So now we just have the bowling ball mesh, but we have it as a grab component. So I didn't want to just drag the ball itself, the mesh, into the scene. Instead, I wanted to make it into a grabbable ball blueprint. So make sure you do that. That way a virtual reality controller can grab the ball. Okay, so now we can go back into our VR template map. Don't forget to save. And here I'm going to just move my content browser back beside my details. Let's see here. I'm going to just move it back into details. So I'm going to take it here and just put it right beside. Let's see. Not here. Move it up. We can close this grabbable ball now and just take the content browser and put it beside details. Okay, here we go. Now, instead of adding this icosphere mesh to the scene, I am going to find our grabbable object inside of content. I'm going to take the grabbable ball and put that inside of our game. Okay, so here we now have this blueprint object in the game. You can see it's quite huge, so let's resize it. To resize this, we can either resize the blueprint class itself, or we can actually directly resize the mesh. Doesn't matter. So just double click on the blueprint to open it again. And let's go into the components and let's select the icosphere and enter the viewport. Okay, so if you scroll back or down, you can see this bowling ball just because it's so big. Inside of the details, you can change the scale of the bowling ball. For example, I can make this 0.1 by 0.1 by 0.1, and that's just going to make that bowling ball a lot smaller. Okay, so now if we go back into our VR template map, we can see the bowling ball is a lot smaller, and I can just scroll up to zoom in on it, and I can click and drag it around as long as I have my select and translate objects tool here. All right, so now our bowling ball is smaller. Great, okay, so that is our first object added to our game. We can already test out this object just by hitting play with simulate enabled. Okay, so there is the ball. You'll notice here I can move it around, but it doesn't really behave like a normal ball. It doesn't roll around. So how do we make sure that this ball moves like a normal ball? Look, it doesn't even understand gravity. Well, let's hit stop and let's enable physics on this ball. Okay, so for this, I'm going to go back into my grabbable ball here, this blueprint, and we can search for physics here in the details window, and we have this physics component. Hit simulate physics, which is going to enable the ball to move around and also roll. And then we're also going to select mass, and I'm going to change this to a mass of 1 so it's lighter, because if it's lighter, it will more easily roll. If you give this a huge mass, you'll have a harder time moving the ball because it'll be heavy. Okay, then let's save and compile this blueprint and then go back to our map. Okay, then I'm going to hit play again. And this time, if I lift up my ball, let's just click on that ball. Maybe let's move it up a little bit outside of play mode, then hit play. Look at this. Now it falls and rolls. Okay, and if you hit stop, it'll go back to its original position. Okay, so what about moving it around? Let's hit play. Let's say I wanted to grab that and I wanted to move it myself. Okay, let me just click on that, double click on the bowling ball, and then move it around. You'll see it's still not rolling. So if I want to get this ball to roll around when I move it, what I'm going to do is add colliders to it. To add colliders, I'm going to open the mesh itself. Okay, so I'm going to go into my content folder and search for the ball. And this time I'm interested in the icosphere static mesh. So double click on that and you'll open the mesh view, not the blueprint here. And I'm going to add collision to it at the top. Let's add a sphere simplified collision. All right, so here we can see we now have this collider around it that's mimicking a sphere but is not quite a perfect sphere. You can also remove the collision if you don't want it. You can auto vex the collision, and you can add different types of collisions as well. So let me just remove this. Let me add a sphere simplified collision again. Okay, this time when I add a sphere simplified collision after removing the previous, you'll notice here, this time it's a bit closer to the ball's accuracy. So make sure to remove the old collider and put on this sphere simplified collision that is close to the bowling ball itself. You can also set the convex decomposition in the bottom right hand corner if you want to change that, but it's not required. We can leave it at the default. Then save this mesh and close it, and then you can go back into your game and hit play again. Next up, let's add in more of our assets. So we'll put in our landscape, so our environment, instead of having this closed box, and we'll add in our pins for the game. Join me in our next lecture where we will continue this project.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this course. If you want to watch the rest of the course, the link is down below. Not only will you get the access to this course, but you'll get access to a lot of other courses in a huge bundle, and it's on sale today. So buy before the sale ends. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.